Hello everyone, welcome back to our channel. I'm Aditya. In this video, we will see Laravel Sanctum API, try to cover most of the basics, and also we'll try to create a very simple API. Core focus here will be on the concepts. So without any further ado, let's begin. Let me tell you what is Laravel if you're new to this. So Laravel is a PHP web framework, and you could create API or full stack app with Laravel. And the thing about this is, it is really frameworks for artisan because the developer experience is just to the next level. It has all the possible features you need. It is super elegant. Documentation is very well clean written. So rarely you will regret using this Laravel framework. Now here you could create a full stack app, as I said, or you could create an API. So what we are going to do is we will be focusing more on the API side. So let's go and create a Laravel project. Now to create a Laravel project, here you would see they have the API backend, the full stack framework backend. So we go to the API backend over here. So you'll see they have a single, like you could use their starter kits, one of the starter kits, or you could use just simple Laravel project and create your own on top of that. So now let's try to create a Laravel project. So if we go to installation here, in the documentation, you'll see you could either create using a Docker. So in that case, you don't need to configure the project. You just need to configure it once, and then you can deploy the container straight on any cloud provider. Or you can create a scratch project or project from scratch. In both cases, you'll be creating it from scratch, but that's the thing will be here. You can configuring on the local server as well as on the dev server, or sorry, on the live server. I'll go with the hard approach where we'll use without Docker. So I will just copy this command, go to my terminal over here and just paste that command. And also I will change this from example app to Laravel API. Along with this, before you do this, actually you need to make sure you have PHP latest version installed. And also I have created a database in MySQL Workbench. So here we have the Laravel API database. Now currently the database don't have anything. It just has one record that I used for testing, but I will just remove that. So we can start from scratch. Great. Now what I'm going to do is once the project is created, I will just go to my project and open it with VS Code. So let's go over here, cd Laravel API and open with VS Code. Now here, let me just, okay, there we go. So I'll open it. Let me full screen this. There you go. Let me zoom a bit. There you go. Now here we have a basic skeleton. It's actually not a basic skeleton. There are a lot many files here, which makes this framework's developer experience super amazing. Now, if we start with the app folder over here, so this folder, so first of all, Laravel is a model view controller from framework, MVC framework. So model refers to PHP class. If you're referring to Laravel, in others, it will be that programming language class. So in Laravel, it's a PHP class mapping on a database table. So if I go and take an example of users class, it will map on a users table, a plural of this. So these are very useful to write parameterized queries or writing some relational queries. And also the good thing about this is you could write just plain PHP code with models and have SQL thing done, or database things done. Now here, one drawback is as you are using models, you might see a performance drawback, or there's, I won't say drastic difference in the performance, but there is, like, the performance is a little bit slow. So for that, they have query builders, which are somewhat similar to model, but they are not mapped to a class. So there is a DB class, which helps us to write literally have database queries functionality without having to write raw SQL queries. So overall, it has all the possible features to make sure that you write performance efficient app. Also, you could write raw SQL queries, that goes without saying. Then we have console and exceptions. So the console is for, if I go over here, you will see this is where you can register your commands. So if you want to register a command that you want to run through a terminal, you can register it over here. Also, we have some exception handlers. So this is the class which is responsible for handling exceptions, but overall we don't need to change anything here. Next we have controllers. So controllers here, from model view controllers you could consider as, let's say we have, let's take example of traffic lights. So traffic lights controls traffic. In the same way, controllers controls the flow from view to model. So view is the front end, not Vue.js, but VIEW view. It's a front end, and it controls the business logic that through with the model. So what it does is, let's say I want to write a route where we get a list of all users. So the display, the UI will be in the view. The route will be in the web.php somewhere, we'll see in a moment. But the controller will make sure that it triggers the model, right? Triggers the model to run the query. And we will have a function here, something like, let's say currently they have register. Not this one, this is not the one. We go to controllers. Let's open this dummy controller. So currently we can have function like this. Let's say not in this, we will create a new controller, public function. Let's say get users. And this function will help us to get all the users here, where we will first use models to run a query, and then we will get the data and send it. Now, generally you have service classes or action classes or some kind of classes which runs the business logic, and those are called in controllers. So depends upon how you want your architecture, but suffice to say controller is where you have your business logic. Then we have middlewares, which are like guards. So if we want to make sure that the user is authenticated, we can write a middleware here before it reach any controller or even reach any route. So after the route is hit, the middleware can run. And if we have a route which takes to the other route, we can have middleware before reaching that route as well. So in all, middleware will come over here. Then once we register write a middleware, we need to register them over here. So that's our kernel.php. Now you'll see this kernel.php as well, but they are different. So this kernel.php is related to the HTTP kernel, as you could see. And here we can write our middlewares. And at the end, if we close this as well, we have config. Sorry, before that we have models. This is where we will have our models. The providers are just some classes which are responsible or which are actually kind of like working along with you could say like a core component of Laravel project. So app service provider is the main class. Now here generally you will have some logic which you want to run before your framework boots or somewhere before you hit the controller. So this is where your app service provider, like the logic will come. But generally, like most probably 90% of the time, you don't need to touch this. There's very rare case you need to touch this. You need to have some extra logic. One of them could be, which it's kind of like, it's not, I won't say it's rare, but one of the mostly used logic is having HTTPS route. So you can have that over here just to make sure all requests are served over HTTPS, but most probably you won't even need it. Just in case you need it, it will come in the boot function. But overall, very rarely you need to touch these files. Like you can have a sophisticated web app in Laravel without touching these files. These files are when you want extra level of customization. That's what I want to say here. So here route service provider will have all the routes. So here we are telling that, okay, there is the API routes, because this is what it's of our interest. It follows middleware of API. The prefix for any route for API is /API, and the path or the files that are responsible to have these paths will be routes /API.php. So if you're coming from Express or Fast API, so in Express we have like index.ts or index.js, there we have app post, app get, all those things. Similarly, we will have those in api.php and web.php, but the map needs to be provided over here. Now, once this is done, next thing we need to do is close this and go to config file, which we'll see in a moment. Database files, database folder is where we have files related to database. So we have migrations folder where we write migrations. So migrations are nothing but schema or skeleton of your database tables. And for each here we have, so we are given some basic migrations. So we have users table, we have password resets table. We will also write some of our own database schemas. After that, we have seeders. Now, seeders are useful when you want to create fake data in your tables for testing. Okay, so we can create seeders class. So how it works is a seeder either triggers a factory, or you can have the query right to insert data written inside the seeder straight away. So inside factory, you just provide the name of the columns, and also you provide like some unverified functions. So here, as it says, indicate that model's email address should be unverified. So what should be the default state for unverified things? So your email verified, by default it's going to be null. And here what do we do is if we go back over here, to our seeder over here. So here we are saying that, okay, we'll create 10 users using the factory. So each model has a factory associated with it, or we can create a factory associated with each model. And then we can just simply say user, like the model, and the factory function associated with it, which will trigger the created factory. So if I want, let's say, have a projects for model, so project factory should be here first before I trigger the factory from here. Now, once that's done, we can go forward to public folder where we'll have our public asset. And this is where the main root file lies for Laravel project. Any Laravel project will have this index.php, and this is the file which is kind of like a core file or entry file of our Laravel project or any Laravel project. As soon as someone visits our website, this file is hit. This file boots up entire Laravel framework or our project. So then we have resources. This is where the front end things reside. So you can have front end with simple HTML, CSS, or with Blade, like just using Blades in templates, or you can have React, Vue, Svelte. You could use Inertia with Vue, or React, or Svelte, which is a monolith framework for this, and it's really good as well. If you don't want JavaScript, but you want the features of JavaScript, that sounds crazy, right? We have Livewire, which is a Laravel framework. So it is used when you want to write something like Vue or React, but without using any JavaScript. Sounds super crazy, right? Definitely check Livewire. So that all will come inside resources, the front end, and here we have routes folder where we have our routes. So in web.php, we will have web routes. If you're creating full stack app, you can have your routes over here. Also, you can create separate file for your routes, let's say user routes, project routes, etc. Just you need to put them in the route service provider, just need to put the map. But apart from that, you can create them over here separately. In api.php, we will have API routes. Console is for the command line commands. So for that, we'll have those things over here. Channels is for when you want to have something like Pusher or WebSocket, where you want to have a broadcasting channel. Next, we have a storage folder where we have the assets that we don't want to make public. So any assets like logs or some PDF files or secure files that you want to store and serve without having them to expose publicly, that will go inside the storage folder. Next, we have .env file, which is like our environment variable file. Now here I need to provide database password and database credentials. So I'm going to provide it. So I'm going to pause the video a bit, do this and come back again. And then we have composer.json, which is kind of similar to what we have package.json for JavaScript. So composer.json is for PHP, where you have package details and their meta details, whatever package are used. Then we have package.json, which has details about JavaScript packages being used. And if you see, it uses Vite. So if you are using React, Vue, or Svelte, Vite is here. So that's great. Now let's go and try to create some scaffolding for our project, and then we will get and start creating some API routes. So let me put my database password and we'll go from there. Right, so all set. Now let's go over here inside the documentation. And what I'm going to do is inside documentation here, we have starter kits. Now, if and only if you're creating a new Laravel project, these starter kits are really good. Like if you're on a full stack web app, Jetstream is great. It has Vue Inertia version and Laravel Livewire version. So you can choose any one of that. They also have Breeze. So this is just for authentication, while Jetstream has more of like some dashboard and Teams management. It's kind of like really cool. If we are using for API, we could go with this option where they have also a Next.js scaffolding and also Laravel backend scaffolding. So scaffolding only for registered login routes with password verification and other routes. So I'm going to use this one. The only problem is if we use this, we won't be able to, most probably won't be able to test the register and login routes with Postman. The reason being, these routes, they need CSRF token or they need CSRF cookie. So it's a coarse thing. So to bypass that, we will need a front end to test it. But the other API routes, we can simply test using the Sanctum token. So here, I'm going to copy this. First, I'm going to install this. So let's go up over here, where it says Composer require Laravel Breeze. Let's take this. Let's go inside our terminal, paste it over here. And at the same time, let's get this one over here. So for the API. So if you go down, the API option. This is what we want. Let's grab it from here and let's paste it over here. Now what it says is you need to run this command. So this command is just gonna go to our database and create tables. The only thing is, once you create a table, you can easily modify it by writing a migration, and also you can easily add new tables. Like, it's super easy. So let's first migrate all the tables that we got, like users table, password reset table, personal access token. So I've already done that. PHP artisan migrate, actually not this one. So I've already migrated table. So Laravel doesn't, oh sorry, I need to change the database name. Right, let's run that again. So I already have migrated table, so nothing to migrate. That's great because they are already here. Like if I show you inside tables, they're already here, so we don't need to worry about that. There we have register, login, forget password, and this code is already written. We can simply modify this and have it according to how we want. I'm going to keep this like this because it's pretty amazing with these features as well. So register is referring to register user controllers, which is inside app HTTP auth controllers auth. And here you have register user controller, where we simply have a validation first. So Laravel also have built-in validation commands, or you could say rules, and they are very amazing and they cover almost every type of validation, like literally almost every type of validation. Then we have a functionality here to create a user, and once the user is created, so we use the user model. There we use the create function of the model, and that takes in the key value pair, where key is the column, value is the value we want to put in the column. And after we create a user, we get the model instance or the created record, you could say. Then we trigger an event of new registered user. So that event, we can find it inside events. So if we go to app HTTP, then there should be close the HTTP. So let's see where it comes from. So register users comes from eliminate auth events. So it's coming from this one over here. So they have, there we go. Like the easiest way is to just simply command click on that and it will take you there. Here you have register.php, and that's what happens. So as soon as the user is registered, this event fires up, and this event is doing nothing but just assigning it to the user instance over here. And once it assigns to the user instance, if we go back over here, we use it to log in the user. Once the user is logged in, we can also like have some other things here. Maybe we want to send notification, we want to send email. So that logic will come inside the handle function of this event. Or after that's done, we log in the user and we send no response. Now, if we are using Sanctum, which we are definitely using, we will have to return a token as well. So we'll do that logic later, but let's see other routes. So after this, let's go back to, let's close this one. Let's close this one. Let's go auth.php again, login. So login route is referring to authenticate session controller. Here you have store function and destroy function. So this here is referring to the store function, where we try to get the user. So first we try to authenticate it, and then we try to generate a session, and then we return nothing. So these functions, you will see they're mostly like they're for a single page application, but we can also add some Sanctum flavor here. There we can return a token, and that should be fine. So by default, Breeze API comes with Sanctum scaffolding as well. Now the problem here is this CSRF token mismatch, because if we notice, this auth.php is like, these all are web routes. So the register, login, everything. Now how to deal with this is, there are two ways. Number one is we have a front end where we first make requests to this Sanctum session, which is Sanctum CSRF cookie. Once we send this, we get this cookie over here, like XSRF token and Laravel underscore session. And with Axios, we can send them to the login or register or any request. So this is known as session-based authentication. The other way is we can put these routes like URL, sorry, not register, URL register, but register inside our API.php. And here in overview, not in overview, here in the variables, I have put URL as this localhost URL, which is our server URL. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this from here, auth.php, and I'm going to put this inside our api.php over here outside. Or what we could do is we could create separate route or guest. That would be good actually. Let's do that. So here I'm going to create guest.php inside routes, guest.php, put all these things over here. And what I will do is go over here, try to find our route service provider inside providers, app providers, route service provider. And here I'm going to say that route will be middleware. So for the route of middleware of API, don't use web because it will throw again CSRF token problem. I want to find, so the prefix is going to be again API, and also the routes. So look for extra routes. So we have one routes in api.php, a group of route, and the other group of route will be inside group base path routes guest.php. So these are our like public routes. Now only problem here is, if you notice inside this one over here, guest.php, it's best to keep these two routes, or at least these 4 routes in the guest, while the other ones, these ones, they are best to be kept inside api.php with Sanctum guard, so that we can pass the token and have these routes being protected. On the other hand, for these routes, we are expecting that as these are public, so our API request will go there and then we will receive a token once someone hit this route. Now, it's kind of insecure, but again, we can add a layer of security by managing code here and there. So what I'm going to do now is, once this is set, this auth.php is not needed. So let's try to remove this from here. And now if we go back to this, let's restart the server. Right, so it's going to say no such file or directory or .php. So what we need to do is inside web.php, we just remove this line. And then over here, we can try again. And there we have it. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do next is, so this is done. Next thing we need to do is, let's close this. Let's go to register over here. Now what's going to happen here is just going to create the user without assigning a token. So what I want is here, I want to send a token as well. So what I'm going to do is I will go to Sanctum documentation. Then issuing API tokens. So we just need to make sure that these traits are added as API tokens. So let's just double check they are added on users table. If you have a separate model, or if you want a different model to take care of this, you can add that trait on that model. So I've added it on, it's already there. I haven't added it, it's already there. And also when we create a user, we will get something like this. So we could use the user instance. There we could create a token. We can give that token some name and we return back the plain text token. So let's do that. So what I'm going to do is, before that also, in .env file, I have added this environment variable of Sanctum stateful domains to be like public, because I want this app or this API service to be accessed from all the domains, and we will authenticate using Sanctum token. Okay. So let's do that. And also inside the cors, just one last step before we proceed forward, because there will be some more steps, but just in case, config cors.php, I have added this thing over here. So in the allowed origins, I have just added asterisk, that means wildcard, so it's allowed from everywhere. Now here, what I'm going to do is, once the user is created, once this is done, here I'm going to say token equal to $user create token. And if we see over here, this one, create token, and we need to pass some name. So the name for this would be API token. You can call it anything. I'm going to call this API token. Then here, instead of response no content, if we saw no content, just going to be like normal thing. I want to send a response JSON response, and I want to send these things. So user details, $user, and the plain text token. Okay, now let's see what's wrong. So response, oh, so it should be JSON response, this one. I think it's this one. Yeah, that's the one. So we can, so this is just strictly type PHP. Sorry, I need to this bigger. Yeah. So we are saying that this function takes in the request, which is of class request, and returns a JSON response. So this one over here, and we first validate, then we just run the logic of registering the user over here or creating the user. Then we trigger an event so that we can send a notification of email verification or whatnot. At the end here, we create a token. Before that, we log in the user or authenticate the user, and we send back the user. Now, one more thing here is this thing over here. We also need to do it inside the login part, which we'll do it in a moment. But let's just save this and see if this works. So what I'm going to do is go over here. I have already added some details here, some fake details, which is my name only. I'm not sure why I'm calling it fake. And let's just send it. So we have route could not be found. Of course, we need to add API prefix here. Post request, and there we have it. So this is our API token, this one over here, and this is our user registered. And if you notice, there is no password at all. Like, the reason being, it's so simple in Laravel to hide keys that we don't want to send. Inside the models, I'm saying what keys should be hidden or what columns should be hidden and what are fillable, like what could be those columns where we could insert data. So it's super easy. Great. Now let's see how it looks in database. So if you go to database over here, run this. Okay, we have our user registered. Let's see personal access tokens, because that's where the tokens are stored, and we have the token stored as well. The token is encrypted here. That's why we need the plain text token. So this is the token that user needs to use when they use our front end, or if you have your own front end, you need to make any further request after login and registration with this token. If you don't put this token, it's gonna throw in Sanctum error. I will copy this token somewhere, or we'll keep it like this. But okay, let's just copy it and let's just put it somewhere. So let's put it here. Later we will use it. I'll show you why I'm just pasting it here. Great. So next step, do the same thing for login. So let's go for the login route, which is authenticated session. Is it that one? Yeah, I think so. Let's just double check. So if we go to guest.php, yeah, authenticated session controller, this one over here. Yep, so this one over here. So we need to work on this one. So let's go to login right here. Now what we need to do is, this again will become JSON response, this one, and this one over here. So first we authenticate, then we can just get the token, or because every time when the user register and login, we can create a new token for them. But we can also dispose the old token. So if you want to dispose the old token, depending upon whether it's a single tenant or multi-tenant app, generally in multi-tenant you don't need to dispose it, but if it's a single tenant, then you need to dispose the old token. So here there should be a way to dispose it. Let's just quickly find that. So revoking tokens, this one over here. So what we do is, we current access token, we delete it. So user's current access token, and then we create a new token. Okay, so we can revoke a specific token, revoke all the current tokens. So let's revoke the current token over here. So I'm going to say $user. So we will need the user first. So I'm going to say $request user, and then I'm going to say let's just info this so that we could check if we are on right track. So yeah, just info user, answer this, and we can check it in logs as well. For now, let's just remove the types and just keep it like this. So let's go back over here for the login request. So we can have login with the same username and password. So same details we can pass over here from the body, like email and password. This other fields will be ignored. That's fine. Let's run it. And we didn't get anything because this is the response no content. But if we check over here inside log, there we have the user that is trying to log in, this one over here. Okay, so we'll use this user to create the token. So what's happened is inside request, there is the authenticate method, which looks for the user details and automatically authenticates the user. Then once we get the authenticated user, we have it in the request user. And also what we will do is here, we'll create a token. So I'm going to say delete the token first. So $user current access token, delete it. And then we'll create a new token, API token again, and we will pass it over here like this. JSON. And user details and token like this, plain text token. Perfect. Now we can bring in the JSON response again like this, JSON response. There you go. Awesome. Now if we look for this, so this is a login request now. Call to member function, delete. So we're getting it null because this current access token is used when you are using it when the user has used this to authenticate. But in this case, the user haven't used any token, so we need to do this method. And let's just delete all the tokens so that there are no duplicate tokens or no more than one tokens. So we need to run this, and there we go. We get a new token, this one. So I'm going to use this new token now with the further requests. So let's copy this token from here. And what I will do is, if we check back inside personal access token, so we have here, it should be ID with 2. So if we run this, there we have it, ID with 2, because the new token has been received. So we'll go back over here and put this new token like this. So let me copy it again. Perfect. Right. Now that we have our login and register set, next thing is to use these routes, which is API routes. Again, we were using API routes, so now we will use our Sanctum API routes. So what I'm going to do is first we'll create some database migrations. Now here I'm going to keep it super simple. So I will just need a table for, let's say, some posts and some for, like, let's keep users and posts. Very simple. So what I'm going to do is, or we could add user post comments, no problem at all. So here what I'm going to do is I'm going to stop that, run a command, php artisan make migration. So make :migration to create a new migration, post table. That's the name of the migration. And I will say create. So after this, I want to tell what table it should be. So I'm going to say this refers to posts table. So that's the table name. So hit enter. And then if we look back, we should have a new migration file that refers to posts table. Then here I'm going to add some very simple fields. So table string title. If we need slug, $table title slug, or not title, it should be string actually, sorry for that, string slug, and then we will have text content like this. Also, each post belongs to a user. So here I'm going to say $table foreign. So if we look for things over here for foreign key, there are multiple ways to define foreign keys in Laravel. Over this one over here. So if we look for foreign keys constraint, this one over here. So we could use this method, or we could use this method, or also we can have some constraints added like these. So what it does is, if you use this method, what we have used currently, so it's going to create a foreign key column with user_ID, and here we are putting some constraint. So we could say whether we want to have constraint on delete on update what we want to do. So we could put that, or we could pass additional details like what tables it refers to, what's the index name. And the thing about this is if you use user underscore ID, so it knows automatically that it refers to users table. So this should be the user underscore ID. So plural of the table underscore primary key column name. If you use different column name, then you just need to pass additional constraint like these that they have passed. Now we can also pass on update and on delete. So we can go over here, oops, and let's pass those constraints like these over here. So something like this. So I am saying when you update the user ID, generally you won't cascade this. When you delete this, cascade this. Okay, so that's our post table. Let's also create one for comment table. So if we go back over here, let's create one for comments. And also let's create this as comment table. Perfect. Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply copy this schema. It's pretty much similar. Put it over here. So each comment will have some title, or you could say, let's put some content only. Keep it very simple. Each comment will be by user, and also we will have a post ID. So each comment belongs to a post underscore ID. So each comment belongs to a post. Each comment has, well, like the user, and also each comment might belong to a comment. So kind of like a reply. So it could be on the same table. So here I'm going to say $table foreign ID, and I will say parent ID like this. And here what this is saying is there will be a column parent ID which constrains on the table comments. So it will look for the ID over here, and on update we cascade, on delete we can cascade as well. So it automatically it's going to get deleted once we delete it. So this is going to be nullable because some comments may not have reply, or they may not belong to a reply. So that's simple. Let's run this PHP artisan migrate to push this on our database. So PHP artisan migrate, and there we have it. These two tables are there. So if we check over here, refresh this with MySQL Workbench, refresh all, and there we have this. So we have the post table and the comments table. Perfect. Now it's time to create the model. So here I'm going to go and create model, PHP artisan make model for post, and also one for comment. Along with that, I want the resource controllers. So we have API controllers and we also have web controllers. So web controller generally returns some view. API controller returns some response. So what I'm going to do is inside this over here. So if we go for controllers, over here, you will see we have controller middleware, resource controllers, this one. So here we could create a resource controller, and they also have one for API. So let me find that quickly. There we go in the documentation. So when we create a controller, we just need to put API flag, and that will tell that this controller is an API controller. So let's do that. So here I'm going to say PHP artisan make controller, and I will say this as, first the controller name, so post controller, and with API flag. So let's do this. Now if we go over in our code, inside controller, there is post controller. You will see this is API controller. Okay. Now what we need to do is also, if we have created this, we can also have now inside our API route. So what we could do is inside this, we have just one route, but what we want multiple routes. So what I'm going to do is this middleware, and then I'm going to remove this from here, and I will have a group function like this. This group will take a callback like this, and here we can have multiple routes. So I'm going to say one route will be a get route to get the user, and we can have the function like this. So this is a get route to get the user that will return the current user. There will be another route Now here you can create something like this. There is for get, post, put, delete, something like that. So if you have post, you have this, you have delete, something like that. Now instead of creating post, for updating post and all those things, different 4 routes, we could use API resource keyword here. So what's going to happen is inside that we just need to specify, okay, what it refers to. It refers to for posts. So we could say posts, and we will have the class, the controller class that it should map to. So here I'm going to say API resource. This is posts, and this maps to post controller class. So we don't need the model, we need the controller. So let's import this one. Perfect. Now if we see how it works under the hood, so when you have routes like these, so if we see the mapping, you will see /photos. So in our case, it's going to be posts. So it's going to be a get route. When someone visit get routes, it's going to go for index method. The other one, when get create, it's going to create the photos. You have the post method to store the photos. You have the get method again to get all the photos, or get a specific photo when you pass a photo ID. Here you again pass a photo ID to edit it. You get to edit that photo with a get request, and there is put patch request, and there is delete request. So you could use any one of these. Okay, so depending upon whether you're making get, post, and put delete request from the front end, the specific API controller function, so we can remove this migration file, this controller functions will be triggered. Now what we want is, we want to focus on getting all the posts, getting photos, all the posts, creating a post, getting all the post. Then here we have getting a specific post or updating a specific post, and also deleting the post. So our area of interest is destroy, update, index, and store. So, and show as well. So let's do that. So index, here we have posts. So here I'm going to say $posts equal to, we could use pagination here. So post, and here I'm going to say paginate, and we can paginate 10 posts at a time, and just return. So here, now I want to introduce one more thing. So currently we were using some response and JSON and passing these posts. But what if we have a mechanism where we can create a response schema, not the request schema, but the response schema. So in that response schema, we can determine what should be the key values, or what should be the keys, to be specific. Now in our case, we have inside, if I show you this posts table, we have ID, title, slug, content, user ID, etc, etc. What if I just want to send ID, title, or I want to send, let's say, post underscore ID rather than ID. I want to change the key name. So I want to modify the keys. So what can I do is I could create a return resource. Okay. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to run a command, php artisan make resource post resource. Okay. Something like this. Now, if we see it created a resources folder. So inside resources folder here, we have post resource. Now here we can define the schema that we want to send. So what I'm going to do is here, I'm going to say, I want to send post underscore ID. So that's the key that will map to this ID. Okay. So the value of the current post column ID will be post underscore ID for each post. Then we have post title as title, and here post content as content. So I'm just adding post underscore content, and also I can add post created at, I can add post updated at, I can also add the user ID associated with it, but I'm going to say is as author. So the author will be this one over here, the user. And what I'm going to do is I will only send this author if and only if the user has from the front end has asked this. So if you know the concept of lazy loading and eager loading data, so here we have relationship where we are sending post and users. Okay, so each post can have each user can have multiple posts. So I want to know which user is associated with that post. So if that's the case, I can pass that detail also over here. And for that, what I'm going to say is I will say only pass this when loaded. Okay, so here I'm going to say when loaded and when loaded author. Okay, when loaded, only pass this. And if I want to also have a schema for this, which we'll create in a moment, so we'll create a user resource as well, or let's call it author resource. Call this author resource, author, or let's call it user resource. What's harm in that? User resource. Let's go over here, and here I'm gonna say, so here I want to send user ID is this.id, then user underscore name, this.name, email is this, and I'm gonna say created at like this. Let's keep it simple. And then here I'm gonna say that this thing follows function, and here I can pass how many, like what, so if it's one to many, so in this case it's many to one inverse, so it's just gonna be new user. So whatever author, the relationship should be author, and whatever is that, it will transform, go over here and pass the details in this format. Okay, we'll check that in a moment. So that's our post resource. So what I'm going to do is inside here, now this is going to be collection. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say return new collection. So post resource. So sorry, not new, it shouldn't be new, sorry. It should be post resource collection posts like this. Perfect. So if we try to hit this URL in a moment, but before that we need a store method to create a post. So here I'm going to say, now again, this we can validate here, like what we have done inside our register controller, where we write the validation rules like this, or we can create a separate class which could validate this. So what I'm going to do here is, let's go to terminal again. I'm going to say PHP artisan make request, and here I'm going to say, now this request refers to the form request or the validation request, you could say post create request. Let's create that. And what I'm going to do here is, so we should have a request folder, post create request. Now what this is going to do is it will first check, is this user authorized to make this request? So if this is false, this will throw unauthorized error. So to check this, we will see this. So here we will see if the user has passed a token. Okay, so we could simply have this user like this. So if there is a token, that means they are authorized. Now we don't need this because we are already using Sanctum. So what we could do is, if we don't have any more permission details, so we could simply pass this true like this. Okay, so this needs to just be some Boolean. Also here, now we can try to create the post. So here I'm going to say we need title, that's required, and maximum 255 characters. Content, it's going to be string, and we can say some maximum or some minimum. So here I'm going to say minimum 10 characters at least. Then we have, what do we have? User underscore ID. And this here going to be integer, and I'm also going to check that this user exists in my table. So how it works is, I'm saying it exists, the table name and the column it should refer to. So the value will automatically, based on the value, a query will be returned to see if the user exists in the users table based on the ID. So this is going to be the user ID value. And what else do we need? I think this should be fine. So that's our post create request. So let's go over here, replace this request over here with post create request, this one we created. And simply here we could have data, $data will be request validated. So all the validated data will come here, and then we can simply create a post like this and then return the post resource like this. So let's give this API route a try. So let's go over here. I have created this for project. I can call this for posts actually. And here what I'm going to do, post request body. So I'm going to change this to title. I'm going to call this as content, and I'm gonna call this as user underscore ID. So currently the user ID is, I guess, 3, if I'm right. Yeah, 3. So let's pass the ID as 3, and let's try to create a post. Oops, server is not running, sorry for that. Let's run the server php artisan surf. So let's run this. There we go, unauthenticated. This is because we didn't pass the token. So inside authorization, we need to pass the API token. So that token, what I'm going to do is it's going to go as bearer token. So inside the variables over here, if we go over here in Postman inside variables, I just need to change this token value. So if we go to our register user, this is where we pasted our token. Copy this token, paste it over here and save this, go back to this, run this, add title to fillable property. Now if you see, it says we need to add properties to fillable for a model. So if you go to the posts model, currently there is nothing added in fillable. So if you want all the fields to be fillable, you could say protected $guarded, and you could pass an empty array. That means nothing is guarded, everything is fillable. So if we run this, it says slug doesn't have a default value. Oops, we missed the slug, very important. So post create request, and here we need a slug that is required. It's going to be string, and it's going to be unique for each post. So same good thing going to happen. It's going to run the database query to check if the post exists with the same slug. Now in the body, let's pass some slug. Let's pass project -abc. So just kebab case, run, and there you have it. We have a post. Now currently you'll see that it didn't pass any user details. This is because we didn't load the user here. We just created the post and we just sent the post detail. We didn't do any data loading, like not eager, nor nothing. So what we need to do first, before we do that, we also need to define a relationship here inside post model. So here I'm going to say public function author, because that's what we are calling inside our, that's what we want to name our relationship as. And here I'm going to say this returns to, the return type it belongs to many. Oh, sorry, belongs to, not belongs to many, belongs to. Now here I'm going to say, as this is inverse, I'm going to say return $this belongs to user class. Okay. Now what's going to happen is, if we import this from app models user, that's great. Now if you don't pass any ID or anything, it knows how to look for. It will look for user underscore ID, and like all it needs to know is the table names plural form underscore primary key column name. So ID is the primary key over there. Plural singular form, sorry, not plural, singular form of our users table is user. So user underscore ID, and it's going to just pick it up. So it's going to work perfect. But in case if you have different name for the foreign key, then in that case, if we go inside the relationships column, sorry, relationships section, eloquent relationships, there you need to define the keys. So if we go to one-to-many inverse, they have belongs to. So if we don't have, everything is fine. We don't need to define any keys here. Otherwise, you need to pass the foreign key. And if you also have a different primary key value, you can also pass the primary key over here. Perfect. All set. Now let's try and send all the posts. So inside post controller, we are paginating things, but here I want to do with. So this is for lazy loading. Okay. Sorry, eager loading, not lazy loading. I'm extremely sorry, eager loading. So I'm going to say what I want to eager load. I want to eager load author. So get all the users. Now let's write a get request. So get all, and here we will make this as a get request posts send, and there you have it. We are getting all the details. Now here it doesn't send any author detail. Let me see what I'm missing. Okay, so for some reason it didn't pick up. So in that case, let's pass the foreign key as well. Let's see, then it picked up actually. So if I go back over here, send again, and there we have it. So the data for the user is also transformed. So that's great. So next thing we need to do is, okay, this is done. Let's go and try to get a specific post. So what I'm going to do is, we have show We have index, so we can also delete this. I was using for testing. And store, show, update, destroy. Okay, now let's try to get a specific post here. Okay, so display a specified resource. So here I'm going to say $post. Also get the post. We could use find or fail if it's just an ID, or what we could do is we could also use where clause, and I can say where. So here I need to pass the ID is whatever the ID value is, or I could say find method like this, find, and it knows that it needs to look for the ID column. So whichever works, you could use it. Let's try with where. So here I'm going to say where ID, and then here I need to get the first one. Okay, so here we are getting just one post, and that's going to be with ID 1. So if we pass this again and pass an ID of 1, we should see just one post like this. Perfect. All good. Let's proceed forward to update a post. Now here again we have request, post request. So what I'm going to do is here inside the post create request, if we go back over here, we have everything required. Now the possibility is they might just update title, they might just update slug, or they just might just update content. They may or may not update user ID. So one of these only they will update. So for that we need to make this optional or nullable. So what I'm going to do is here, if we go back, let's create another request. So we created one for create, we could create one for update. So let's run that, serve the project again. And here, what I'm going to do is I'll simply copy this bits over here like this, paste them over here like this, and this will be nullable. So it's optional, nullable, nullable. Title is actually required. We cannot have this. This needs to be, this is nullable. So this could be nullable as well. Oh, this could be require nullable, and this could be, this is not needed. So you can just remove this one over here. Okay, perfect. So that's great. Now let's write the update request. So if you go to post controller, so inside update, this would be post update request, post update request. It should be auto imported. There you go. And then here I'm going to get all the validated data, look for the post, update the post, and then send the resource. Or I can simply update the post over here like this, and I could send either the updated post, or I could just send a response like this, return. So if you do something like this, this is going to say how many posts are updated. So I'm going to say response post updated successfully like this. So we don't even need this actually. We can keep it like this. Perfect. So let's try the update method. So have update user. Instead of that, I'm going to say update post. And in the body, what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the body from the project update. Sorry, the title name doesn't make sense. Sorry for that. Let's put them over here. Let's just update the title. So here I'm just going to update. So we also need the slug actually. So the reason I'm passing slug, because sometime it could happen that they pass empty thing. Or what we could do is, actually I have an idea. Let's make everything optional, everything nullable like this, everything nullable like this. And what I will do is here, when we update, I'm gonna have $data array filter data. So whatever is nullable will be totally ignored. So this trick I just got with some trial and error when I was working on a project. So here we can filter this, and whatever keys are not there, they will be ignored. So we don't have any null values by mistake added it for a table or for a row, and only those values which have value will be updated. Perfect. So let's go back over here. I won't pass any slug. I will just pass the title like this. So in the update request also we need to make changes. Okay, this is all nullable. That's good. So let's go back over here. Send request. Sorry, API post 1 could not be found. Route API post. Did I start the server? sorry, it's post, sorry. There we go, post updated successfully. So we had project ABC, let's change it to project XYZ, like this. It should be post XYZ, don't know, maybe it's just, anyhow. So if we trust for the MySQL workbench over here, inside the post, you'll see we have title of project XYZ while everything remains as it is. Perfect. That's done. Last, we have the delete request. So here we can have destroy one. So here we can just delete the post using the where clause. So here I'm saying post model where ID is ID, whatever ID is being passed in the URL, and delete. Now these URL values are this one over here that we are passing. Okay, so just delete the post, and here it's simply gonna delete the post. So let's go back over here. What I'm gonna do is, so we delete the post by going to I'm gonna call it a delete request. It's gonna be URL, but API posts 1. So it's gonna delete the post. Oh, sorry for this. Run this. Sorry, we didn't put the headers actual. Should be there. Let's see what's the problem. So we have a problem here in terms of get method is not supported for this, for API route login. Oh, wait. So this is the delete method that we are trying to pass. So I think I'm doing something wrong in the headers. There we have unauthenticated. That's great, because in authorization, we need to pass bearer token. That's gonna be the API token variable that we just used. Now here in the header, just make sure that you're passing application JSON and application JSON for content type and accept. This is because if you don't pass it, it don't know that it's gonna be like a JSON request, or it's kind of like a JSON request. So it's gonna throw it an error because it will consider it as a web route for some reason. So here we just need to pass these two headers, run the request, and I think we didn't return anything. We are returning the message actually. Oh, we didn't save this, sorry. So run the request and post deleted successfully. So we go to the database, run this, and there we have it, the post is deleted. So these are our API routes. So that's all in this video. Hope you enjoyed this video. If you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. If you feel this video is worth sharing with your network, please do share with your network. And if you haven't subscribed to our channel, please do subscribe to our channel. So see you in the next video. Till the next time, goodbye.